under projections, which when we're talking revenues, under is bad. As far as, I mean, it's not bad, but we had a couple of things happen. We were expecting, the biggest thing, well, we came in under 26,715. The biggest thing was we were expecting a cable TV franchise tax payment that for $25,000. It came in like November 3rd. So they just got the check out late. We're still, I've talked to multiple people about the minimum business tax. My last conversation was Ralph Cross with MTAS. He says we should get a large sum in January because of all the restructuring of the filing periods for businesses. So our distribution is nothing like it has been in the past. And the state comptroller said that, and other folks that I've talked to have said that as well. Local option sales tax, well, came in under projections due to the tax-free weekend in August.
How much?
$8,000. And property taxes came in $10,674 under projections. I don't know, our bills got out 3 days late. We averaged about $4,000 a day after at the tail end of October and through to date in November. So, I'm attributing it to that. We have set up where we're going to get out bills hopefully by mid-September next year going forward. And of course the court fines and fees continue to lag. The only thing I've looked at past data, and I looked at with Diane Ford, and our traffic tickets are quite a bit less than they have been in the past. But it's came in 6,600 under projections. But we had quite a few items over projections, but that's just the unders. On expenditures, we came in $15,105 over projections, and we were doing real well. But we had we paid out $40,415 to 4 local businesses due to building permit overcharges. So that's put us over that, and we also had a $9,786 road loan that came due that it was not projected until November. So those 2 items were not in the projections.
So we really would have been, in terms of what we're spending for maintenance of the city, we would have been 35,000 below. So Mr. Hall and his crew are still doing everything appropriately in that regard.
Yes.
Okay.
And that 40,000 came out of the facilities tax?
Yes.
Okay.
Year to date, we are at a shortfall on revenue of $25,416. Year to date, we are under projections, $85,409 on expenditures. So for year to date, we're still ahead of our projections, $59,993.
Given what you see, do you project that, as I listen to you, project that I don't see that we need to implement anything at this point? I'm thinking that February is our drop dead date. When our meeting in February, if most of the property tax should be in, that big payment that you just talked about coming in, all of that stuff, if we got to do something to give to the board, then our February is what I think we're heading toward, that we're going to have to do at our February meeting, so that we'll have March, April, May, and June, 4 months out of the year to do something with it if we have to make a correction. What do y'all's thoughts on that.
Also, I believe the holiday season would probably hit in the February payment, wouldn't you say so?
Yeah, in February, March at the latest. I'd love to see what a holiday season with Walmart in town as well. It's 60-day delay, so we'll need from December, January. It should be February. I think we should see the results of that.
I think that's one of the questions, because we had told them, told us, two-headed monster here, we had said that we would, after the end of the first quarter, which would be, July, August, and September, and then we kind of delayed it a little bit because of our other work on the plan. But I think the board's going to want to know, in a total assessment kind of way, are we still good with what we had going with our plan, or is it time that we start taking some sort of action?
Well, we're going to be significantly under on the city court. And it just depends on whether we have made up enough of that in cutting and holding everything back as to whether we make that up or not. But we're talking $100,000
I don't
probably.
think it's that much, is it? Well,
We'll just have to look at it, but
Donna and I we had agreed that we would get together and have about a 3-hour session and just analyze, scrub, and look at it real close. And I think unless we find something, I think February is really the truest date that we'll have a true number. I mean, we estimate that the holiday season is going to be just tremendously different than it ever has been in Fairview. But until that happens, we really don't know.
Well, in looking at how quickly we turn the aircraft carrier here, February is sufficient time to, if good things are going to happen and we're going to have to turn the ship, we should know it.
All right.
And it's also still gives us 4 months out of the year. They worked miracles last 4 months of last fiscal year. So, I mean, if we really have to do some draconian things, then we still have time to affect those to affect the budget.
Mr. Hall probably thinks he's been doing miracles ever since he started.
But I'm not Catholic. I know there's a degree. There's a miracle, and then there's something else, and and so he's probably working the divine interventions now.
Oh, okay.
So I think there's 3 or 4 levels. I'm not a Catholic.
He did that in
Y'all
October.
What is it? You got, there's some levels, like miracle is you have to do so many or something to be a saint, or how?
Prove it, yes.
Yes.
I'll find a saint for financial, we'll start praying.
Okay.
I thought you already were. Yeah, I think that's a good date.
Okay. I just wanted to get a sense of that in case that comes up.
Okay. I mean, that's, any questions? I mean, I could go into a lot more detail, but that's pretty much the highlights.
You'll have a more detailed package for the BOC meeting, won't you?
Sure, and I've got all the documents here for y'all, if y'all have any questions or anything. I sent, I did not email, I can email out the package as well, but I've got copies of everything here to give everybody tonight.
You give me the agenda in the minutes, but you can email this to me tomorrow if you want.
I've got it now. Did you already have one? This is the report that'll be going to the BOC as well as hopefully on the website after the BOC meeting next week.
I think we wound up with excluding the other funds a little higher negative than we had anticipated. But I assume you made payroll because we didn't hear anything.
We did make payroll
Okay.
today as well.
Any other questions or discussion? Item 5, under old business, discuss and or take action on the stabilization plan and fund balance policy. Do we actually need to do anything else on that?
No, ma'am, I just want to make sure everybody had a copy and everybody knew that the stabilization plan was passed by the BOC last meeting and first, the fund balance policy passed first reading. So I'm very, very excited about that and encouraged, and I think that's going forward. I just wanted to make sure if anybody needed any of that information from me, I can get it to them.
Any questions? Item 6, new business, discuss and or take action on employee handbook policy manual. And we did receive the manuals, but I've only just begun to get into it, so.
What I would like to get out of this today is just kind of get a game plan on, I've talked to City Manager Hall. We would like to have a document we're confident in to present to the board by 1st of March. And what I'd like to do is get a game plan to where I'd like to get input from the members of this committee. Some of it is not totally financially, it is and it isn't. There's a lot of HR, but there is a lot of payroll, there's a lot of vacation, there's a lot of things that deal with finances as well. So any input from this group will be welcome. I'm also having the directors go over it, probably some other superintendent or supervisors. Also, once we get that document, I'd like to have MTAS look at it before we present it to the board, and just would like to have something that we could. We haven't had the employee handbook updated since 2009, and I've heard there's been a few adjustments, but I'm not really sure what they all are. I do know the vacation and the sick leave and all that was adjusted, and I've been going by that. But I think it'd be very advantageous to have our document going forward. And I was thinking maybe taking it, it's about a 90-page document, 20 or 30 pages a month. If you have any changes or recommendations, email it to me or bring it to the, like I said, I just think I would like to compile all the changes, and then maybe before we get ready to do it, have a vote and say, yeah, and maybe go back and forth, pro and con.
Unless somebody has a strong objection, I'm going to be low-key on this. I'll be a resource if you want to know what the thinking was, that maybe I can provide some information. But I'm not going to submit any changes because I do believe in the fact that the board should stay out of personnel matters. And so this will be a document that will be distributed. It doesn't affect the board. Page 7 of the old document says the board it doesn't follow it. So I'm going to kind of just stay out of it and let you guys develop this, because it is an employee document and it will be used to manage people, and I don't think that's where the board needs to be. I'm not even sure the board needs to approve it, quite frankly. I think it's the city manager's deal, but
But for it to be policy, does it not have to be?
Well,
Board
all the
approved?
policy that's in there is, and it's something maybe we want to ask Larry or MTS about, but all the policy in there is personnel policy. And so if you exclude the city manager from it, then it's basically the city manager's document. That's just kind of the way I think, but, you know, the actual approval of the expenditure of the money for leave and merit raise and all that stuff, that's board, but that's budget. That's not personnel policy. Whether or not you drug test somebody, whether or not there's a bullying provision in there, all that stuff is personnel management, and I'm not sure the board asked, but it's just a question to ask. I'm not trying to create controversy. But on a personal level, since I will be on the board to vote one way or the other, I want to keep it very limited. I don't think I should have any particular thing in the document. But if I can answer a question about what we were doing or what the board's thinking was or how we got there or what some manager did, you know, I'll be happy to provide that information. Does that sound logical to y'all, or am I overreacting to that?
No, that's fine.
See that? Yeah.
So do you want to take the first through page 23 for the next meeting?
That
That,
sounds great.
that gets us through termination pay and starts the performance
Okay.
program.
Did you say page 23?
Yes.
Is that correct? Okay.
One thing I might add while we're on this, without the actual finance part of it, we are trying to set up an MTS meeting with all employees to go over workplace teamwork, citizen relationships when we're out there in the public, and try to get some policy in place there. So when we run into that, hopefully that'll be done by that time.
Okay.
One point of clarification, the document that doesn't have a spreadsheet is, or the title page was a 2006, and that was all over the documents I've seen that are bound, it has board approved, such as July 1st, 2006. So I don't know, and of course, like I said, it may or may not need board approval, but I do know there are some.
Let me see that. I think I was on the board when that was approved.
But it's, no, I don't have a copy, I know Brandy does, and I think you do of the bound copy. But that's, there are some differences, so as you look, kind of realize that is the official copy, but there are some that are changed in that one that the board has, adopted, like some of the vacation, areas. So kind of, the one that I want to focus on the most is the one that says revised, but keep in mind that most of what is official is the 2006. And we'll find out if it has to go in front of the board. I just want to do everything the way it needs to be done.
So for our purposes, we're going to work on the revised and use that as a reference.
And maybe go back and just see if there's any differences.
Okay. Just for clarification, we do have vacation and sick leave and,
Fire has PTO, and everybody else has vacation, and everybody has sick leave. It's spelled out in the manual. But,
why is fire different?
I don't know.
Because the way they work,
Okay,
they work 24 on, 48 off.
okay,
So, or is it
We're working 48 now and off 96.
96? But, so they in essence get half the week off every week. So
Okay.
it's strange, but most fire departments run that way. It's
Okay.
not that we're doing anything strange. It's just like their pay period is not 80 hours, their pay period is 105 hours or something. It's strange how they do it.
Any other discussion, questions? Item 6B, discuss and or take action on budget procedure policy. Any discussion?
Well, I tried this, I guess, the first year that Beverly was sworn in and Patty, and it didn't go very far. But I think maybe I'd like to talk a little bit about this. In looking at where we got off the beam, we got off the beam because of revenue projection, not overspending. The overspending became overspending because the revenue didn't materialize. So I would like to see it done a little differently, I guess, in that I would like for the BOC to focus on revenue, and that our efforts not be spent on line item by line item by line item. I don't really know whether the uniform allowance is right or not. Don't know how I would ever know that. But I do have a better handle, I think, on the revenue projections. And so kind of the way I'd like to see it done is that, and it doesn't matter to me whether we do it in January or February, I think is a good time to do it. But after we decide how we are in the current fiscal year and where we're going to, and have a pretty good handle on where we'll be at the end of the fiscal year in February, I think then that amount of money should be given to the board. This is what we anticipate revenue will be for the year. And that becomes the starting point for the operation for the next year. And it excludes any money we had to take out of specialized funds like facilities or anything like that. It basically, to give you the example, say that we brought in $5 million, and that's what we actually brought in, revenue. Then we've already obligated ourselves to $500,000 worth of debt service. And this is a very simple example, but you'll get the concept. So that reduces it to 4.5. Then we also are, under our plans, obligating another $360,000 to replenish the funds. So that takes it from 4.5 down to 4.14. And that is the operating budget for the city. And so then that 4.14 is then given to Mr. Hall and Tom, and they present us with a budget of 4.14 or less. And then any revenue that we get that exceeds last year's revenue then becomes the prerogative of the board to allocate that toward projects, allocate that toward replenishing the reserve quicker, buy things that Mr. Hall comes forward and asks for. But the board focuses on the revenue. The line items are focused on at the city manager level or below. And Patty, I'd be interested in what you think of that too. So I know that's the first time, but I'd like to flesh that out more, because I think that, well, and it's just a personal opinion, but I don't know whether or not they need $4,000 in tires and $3,000 in copy paper. I don't know that. And we spend a lot of time talking about expenses when our real problem has been that our revenue estimates have not been right. So if we start with the known, which is what we will bring in this fiscal year, and then we subtract those things that are not within anybody's control, our debt obligation and our replenishment fund, then in essence, the remainder part of it is that, that's the operating fund. And then what comes in on top of that, of what we got last year, whatever the inflation is, then that becomes the money that can be used to do things, if we choose to do things. Maybe we just want to save it, I don't know. But otherwise, you determine, what is the line item. That is, because you cannot exceed, you have 4.1 or whatever it comes out to be after the numbers, and that's it.
Alan, I think that makes a lot of sense. I think the problem is we always were over projecting.
Revenue.
And if we base it on actually what came in, then I think it makes sense.
And I also think that there are things that we can do, like the insurance. I've been working with Tim, and I'm not to any point of giving a presentation yet, but I've been trying to work that out better, where we have a simpler policy, that we don't have any contingency fund. We know how much that we're going to put in, and the employees know how much it'll be. And actually, it's I was waiting on them to issue the 215, which will come out on the 15th. The marketplace, because once I find something on the marketplace, then Tim can price it for me. But I'm looking at a straight deductible, no HRA type plan, that sort of thing. Trying to come up with that. But that aside, we can, if we give the employees notice, we can split, like their merit raise. We can give them 1% in June or July and 1% in January, and that right there saves us half the money. Or we can go back and we can fix that by doing it like we had originally proposed, which was tied to their anniversary date.
That's what I recommend.
And that saves us money. So that there are many things we can do to, without taking them off that merit pay, which I believe strongly in, but that we manage the payment of it in a better way. Yes, ma'am.
Well, I was going to even suggest when the step plan came, you actually have a post. I don't know where that turned wrong in the meeting, but I would like us to see, find a way to give them their longevity back and to have that year, and then maybe move out where we're not doing or maybe do 2 years or 3 years. A lot of the other governments, you don't get a merit raise every year. So I don't know, maybe if y'all would look at that, that would be a good direction where we're still giving them the same, not taking anything away, but it's longer term, maybe to get us out of where we're at.
Yeah, what I originally proposed, and I don't remember how we got onto it every year either, other than it was supposedly going to be easier to budget if you knew every year. It was kind of one of those things that the feedback we got was it was a little complicated to keep up with. Well, it is, but not if you can get a system. It's one of those things that they make software out there that'll do that for you, relatively easy. But to use I don't know what the state does, but the federal government, the first 3 years on the job, you do get a raise every year. Then after you get 3 years in, 4, 5, and 6, you get one every 2 years. And then the 2 years in between it. And then at 7, 8, 9, and 10, it takes 3 years between your merit raises. And now the merit raises are more because you wait longer. But we could develop a system, and I would be happy to look at that. Develop a system that on the years that you get in them every year, you get less, and then if you have to wait 3 years to get a merit raise, then you get more, you know. So, because because we did get, and I don't remember why, but we did get kind of off the beam there too, and trying to be what we thought was budget conscious by making it simpler, but it did cost us some money to convert over, and it cost us money now because we don't do it on the anniversary date. You know, if an employee, say, gets promoted in December, they're going to get their merit raise in July, when in fact they probably should have to wait a full year before they get their merit raise. And that's how we need to fix that. And I'm not for going back and messing up anybody, taking any money away from anybody, but I can see a logic setting it back up that way, so in the future, when people get promoted or they get this or that, then their anniversary date coincides with their promotion, not July. I think it would save us money.
Do a copy of Metro's, I think theirs is like, the first 5 years, you get a raise, and then after that, it's something similar to what.
Yeah, it doesn't matter, but I do think that's part of it. So if y'all would rather me spend my time on that, I can certainly do that, since y'all do it.
I think it's very important that this is spelled out specifically in the employee handbook policy manual, where everybody's on the same page, because I've heard it at least 10 different ways. So, I mean, I think it would be good to get it done.
Well, I see that as a budget issue, not a personnel practice, so I will do that, and,
And maybe something else, if you will look at it, and I don't mean to butt into.
no, that's fine, I ask.
But maybe it isn't worth it. Like, you know, are we gonna be able to, is it gonna be cost effective for us? And then without taking them, you know, I wanna know as far as budgeting, I know it may be harder, I don't wanna take anything away, but we kinda got in a bind where we're given 2% every year, like we have to. It was, you know, would it be to stagger it and
Yeah, I at the time we did it, there probably was not that big a difference, but as the city continues to grow and as we intend to expand, the more employees we have, it is going to have an impact, and it is something, as the more our employees stay around, it's going to have an impact. So, you know, if you have a third of the employees, it's a good comment. If you had a third of the employees this year getting 5%, that's still cheaper than if you had all of them getting 2%. So, yeah, it'll save us money in the long run. It's just a matter of trying to figure out where the balance is, you know.
I don't know if the suggestion, you know, they did hated to lose that, maybe if we looked at giving that back, and if we do
Well, I can figure it both ways, because the longevity pay is in there. It's part of their pay. So if we gave it to them in a bonus, we would have to pull that out of their pay. But we could do that on a suspend a raise, you know, and give it to them in terms of a bonus, you know.
that way maybe so they're getting something every year and for staying and rewarded, but it's not necessarily that way. Just, and either way it works, I'm just.
I'll do a couple of different iterations of it and get them ready for, you know, by February for sure, but probably sooner.
Well, this policy lays out a guideline for the timing of when we should have things accomplished. So if in January, the board tells us tells the city manager and Tom how much money that they have to work with. And then they start having their meetings, and they know what the amount of revenue is. Then it just gives a guideline of where we're going to go. The one thing in here that's kind of different from what I observed last year is the capital improvements. We pretty much didn't have one. And I think that probably needs to be set out as identify to the department heads what a capital improvement is. And I always looked at it as roads and buildings and that kind of thing, but I think we probably need to put in the police vehicles and the fire trucks and all of those kind of things too. And have that totally separate from the operating budget. I know when we all get through in June, Tom's got to compile it all into a budget that he presents to the state. But as far as our planning and how we go about doing it, I think we need to have it all separate. So we need to do the initial budget of what it takes, the minimum that it takes to get the job done. And then have any increases in employees that we might need as a separate thing, and any of the capital improvements as a separate thing. And we probably won't be able to do any capital improvements next year, but we need to know what the department heads think so that we can keep that in the back of our mind of, okay, when I get to here, I have got to have a car, so that we can plan for it in some fashion. But just because we can't do it, we shouldn't just leave it that we're not going to identify it. So we kind of just need to do the budget what I perceive to be a whole different way, because I don't really know how they went about it last year. In separate little packages, starting with the BLC telling them in January how they expect it to go. And y'all could include the pay plan as part of that of their.
Yeah, you can get it, it just depends upon where you want to cut it. If you assume that the pay plan is really not anything that Mr. Hall has control over, that we set the rate of pay and it's just what it falls into, then you could actually exclude that from the amount of money that you say is his discretion to assign. Same way as I was listening to you about the capital improvement fund, I agree with you. But I just didn't see that in putting 300. See, I kind of envision that if we put 360 in for the next 3 years, then that becomes, after 3 years, that becomes our capital improvement fund.
Right.
That we don't stop that, we don't stop that process. You just keep putting that 360 into,
Right.
maybe not a reserve fund, but a capital improvement fund or a road fund or whatever you want to do with it. So, but the bottom line is that you never stop. Once you start saving that, why would you
Right.
ever stop?
Right.
Because you've learned to live without it. So let's, that's kind of, but it's not, I mean, if you got financially whole quicker, you could certainly add another, the replenish fund is 360 and capital improvement is 100,000, because we know in 5 years, we're going to have 12 cars that we need to surplus and buy 12 more.
And we will be out of debt, so part of that will be going toward that plan
In
too.
cash. You
So,
won't
but I
have to
still
borrow.
I think we need to identify it every year, what they think they're gonna need some year down the road, so that and keep on that same, I don't know if it needs to be the same capital improvement or a separate accounting of any grants that we've applied for that we've got to put money into. We need to keep track of that too, so that when it's all said and done, we don't get caught saying, oh, I've got to have $100,000 for this, and it's not in the budget, and there's nowhere to get it. So we just need to track all of those things too. But I think it'll all work out. I thought it looked like a pretty good policy myself.
I did too. I wasn't trying to throw a kink into it. I was just more of the mechanics of, I really, and Patty may feel differently, but I've been very frustrated with us talking about, is the uniform budget too much? That's really not. I think Patty did hit that on the head. I think it's about the revenue. It's not about how they spend money. They've shown that they can, whatever we give them, they will spend, very judiciously. So that's not, the problem is that, and the easiest baseline is to go to that. And then what you get out of extra, maybe we put into a capital improvement fund. I mean, I think it's gonna grow every year, but then if we have a year and it doesn't grow, then,
Right.
yeah, and there are, I guess we're broadcasting, so I'll hear about this, but, you could always tie the police cars to the court fines.
Oh, please.
Kidding, that's a joke. That's a joke. I don't mean that. But, if you really want to get finite about it,
Hint, hint.
No, I think that we have a good traffic enforcement. If the officer decides it's a warning, not a ticket, then that's a good thing. I don't think we ought to really count revenue that way.
Yeah, we don't want to be caught on the news,
No, don't want to do that.
being a speed trap.
No.
Well, if anybody wants to make any, adjustments, do we want to wait a month on these two items since I got them out a little late? Make any adjustments, or is what you're talking about a totally different, just a overall philosophy, that you're wanting to push and not necessarily a policy?
I'm not trying to put you on the spot, Mayor-elect, but,
And when she hasn't seen it yet.
well, no, she has not just this, but I think, do you have any plans for us to do kind of like we did when Beverly became mayor, and maybe have a workshop or something where we all got together and kind of talked about commingling or whatever, you know what I'm talking about, where we tried to get some semblance of where everybody's trying to go and what they're trying to do, and we could talk about it. If we did that fairly soon after you took office, then we could talk about it there to see if this would be acceptable to everybody. Because I don't, if it's not, then then what Tom's written is perfectly fine by me. But if it is, then I think it would save us some time, but more importantly, I think it's a more orderly way to go about it than line by line by line by line.
I'm sure there might be some questions. I agree. I mean, as long as there's,
We've got to approve the line by line. They've got to do that, but like I said, they're better off, I think, to determine that than we are. That's just my opinion. So why don't we hold off, Tom, and give us a month or so after, maybe to our meeting in January?
Okay.
So this group would basically, make sure y'all might help with some of the line-by-line stuff, but then when it's presented, y'all's recommendation.
This group would have to, at our February meeting, the way I have it kind of pictured in my mind, at our February meeting, we would present the board with two things at the second meeting in February. One, if we felt like some action had to be taken for this current fiscal year to balance, these are the actions we recommend the board takes. Secondly, we recommend the board approve for next year's planning, we recommend the board approve anticipated revenue of X. And then with that amount of money, then Tom and this group and Wayne and his department heads would then build the budget from that amount of money. And they would know that amount of money is the ceiling. It's not going any higher than that because that's based upon what we expect to collect in fiscal year that we're in. And then any surplus that we have, if we need to buy something and he can't afford it in the amount of money we've already given him, we're gonna have to wait until the money surfaces, unless it's an emergency expenditure, or, for something that we don't have any choice, we have to buy it then. But most things, if we wanted to buy a new tractor, then we're gonna have to wait until our revenue surplus is best, which we're gonna find. I think we're gonna find we're gonna do most of our purchases either right there after the budget's approved in July or in January. We're not gonna do a lot of purchasing in between those two. That's just what I think.
Well, and the only thing, and I hate to even mention cars, but we press and press for some kind of plan. So, if we say we need to buy 2 cars every year, figure out how to get that in the budget. We need to never again buy 12 cars. And if we wait, so I just think we need to, if that was what was presented, if that's what we're gonna do, then no doubt they needed cars. But, so it comes to about, us having a plan. So I don't know if we implement that plan in this next year's budget or the next year, because obviously we do have a lot of cars, but we need to reevaluate the whole plan and see what's realistic. Maybe 3 years from now, this is when it starts, because right now I just think that's where we got in trouble, is that we didn't have a plan in place to replace these cars. I really think that we need to look at the fleet and figure out how we're gonna do it, and either y'all can budget it in and go from there. Of course, it's hard to even think about that, worrying about reserves and everything else, and I'm afraid we still have to put it in place.
I think if we do this where we start with what we know came in this year, then we will have some extra money, the growth. And I think that coincides with what Donna was saying. And so maybe we allocate like we're gonna buy 2 police cars, but we don't really need them yet, so we just say, we put the money aside and save it.
Yeah.
And then so that if we get to the point that we can buy 3 or 4 this year, we'll have the money in there when the cars start to break down again. So whether we actually buy 2 a year or not, we should be saving 2 a year, save enough money for 2 a year. I don't disagree with that. And the same way with the fire trucks. I mean, we're really not gonna need a fire truck till 2020, but
2050? No, I don't know.
no, it's one of them, but I think the next one is like 2020 or something.
Yeah.
But we're not, and it's not the big expensive one, it's a little one. But a little one is still $250,000, $300,000.
So we will hold off on the budget and the operating policies until you all have the workshop and we can,
Give us a chance.
yeah. But you can go ahead and send it out to the board to,
To be looking at.
yeah.
Okay, I know for coming in last year, brand new, I would, it would have helped to have, kind of a guidance step by step. And it's, I think, having timelines of when to get things done is good, is important.
No, I think it's a great document. I didn't mean to upset the oxen cart. I just didn't want to, I just really think that within your framework, we can do a better job of not rehashing everything. every time.
Not getting down to
I
June
agree.
30th and,
And still
No budget.
talking about it, and over, do we need 2 ring reams of copy paper versus 4 reams of copy paper.
Any other discussion? Were there any citizens who wanted to comment?
I didn't decide. Questions developed during your discussions here.
I'm sorry, sir, you missed that's the procedures, and we are following the procedures, and you'll have to wait till next meeting.
Okay. Just two nitty-gritty questions. Deciding how much money you're to spend on revenue. Are there any significant amounts of revenue that just happened in 1 year versus the next year? Such that if you plan, let's say on, $4.5 million this year, if $500,000 was some unique revenue, do those kind of things happen? Such that next year you don't have that $500,000, so you'd back down to $4 million, or?
Generally not. I mean, we don't, if we suddenly had an explosion or something of building and somebody came in here and built a mega mall, then yeah, you would have that revenue come in from all those, building funds and all that stuff. And it would be a one-time thing. But generally not, Al. It's a very incremental, growth or drop. It's not big. If you look back over the 10 years that I look back over it, it was pretty consistent.
But if something like that did happen, I guess you could always say, well, we're not going to use that whole
Right.
chunk of money.
Then outlier, you have to take it out,
Right,
or you would set yourself up for failure automatically
Right.
next year.
Then the other question was, when you're talking about, putting time between either merit increases or whatever that was, would that cause any spikes in the budget, like every 3 years or 5 years? Or is it something that, because the employees will get them at different times during the 3-year period, that it wouldn't, it'd be kind of smooth, or?
You would have, the companion piece in that is that you would have to make it on their anniversary date, rather than make it all at one time, or it would cause the spike. But basically, what you've got now is you've got a spike that's this tall, and if you went to a bigger interval, your spikes would be smaller. So even in that case, your spikes would be better off.
Okay.
So you would still have some spike during that year, but you would probably divide your workforce over the course of time. It usually takes about 4 years or so to straighten it out. But over the course of time, your spikes would be smaller.
Okay. Just didn't, if you didn't plan for something, then 3 years down the road, all of a sudden you get this huge
Yeah,
thing.
no,
because of this
you would
new-
actually know it, and you would be, in your prior years to that, you would be reducing it. So you would see benefit before you had the spike.
Okay, thank you.
With the handbook, I think it's real good that, that's being revised, for everyone will be on the same page, there's no question, people can not to, just that it's updated, so everybody knows where to look. And I think for the capital improvement, I think that's are really.
Any other comments?
I don't think I formally announced that, talked to the state comptroller today, and they should hear final approval for the GAN tomorrow. Our TDOT numbers for the grant was $437,730, and our GAN will be $349,384. So I should get final approval from the state tomorrow, but we had some documents that were being held up till I got that announcement.
And for anybody that doesn't know, Miss Henrietta Hall did get the wreaths for us. So now all we have to do is figure out a way to get them up. Well, we got to go get them first, but that's the minor little detail.
We want them in for.
They
How
like
many and how much?
26.
All
Yeah.
Is it
of them.
good
We got
money?
all of them,
What was,
$2,600 and change.
Very good.
And that's another thing to go that direction, because I did speak to Rick and Loretta. I wonder, I know Larry said we couldn't just accept money from citizens. Offered to give a donation. But I wonder if there's a fund, like a unification fund. This type projects. Maybe better to run it through chamber, to make it cleaner, but
I guess we need to have Mr. Hall check with Mr. Cantrell to see if you can have a direct acceptance, or we're gonna have to do something through a,
well, and the only reason I think we can is because of the park, fund, that the entrance, you can donate money, separate, and it's not the regular fund, it's the one that we gave for that entrance. So I really think we can, I just think we need to know the worthwhile.
Well, I'm no attorney, but I've disagreed with Larry before, and I think what he said was wrong. And I base that on the fact that conscience money came into the IRS, the U.S. Treasury, every day. And that's exactly what it is. It's conscience money. It's people send money so that they, relieve themselves of the guilt of cheating on their taxes. And they just send the money in, and it goes into the general fund of the Treasury, and it's pretty sizable. You'd be surprised. So I don't know why anybody couldn't donate to the city of Fairview. Just donate. Now, I don't think you can designate it, but I do think you could donate. I think he was giving bad advice. But I don't know what the state law is here. I just know IRS never turns down money. So people, every day, people send in checks, and I never know why. They just write in there, I owe this, send it in.
It was actually brought to my attention today that our biggest gift to the city was our park.
well, this is true.
So I am going to check with Larry on this a little further and see where we are, because, there's no telling what the gift of that park is brought to the city, so.
And I'm not sure if the Friends are aware, but it is, we do have the account is down at First Bank. If anybody wants to donate to the park, it's a non-interest bearing account, and I think I'm gonna go donate something, because it's been a year since anybody's done anything. And so to keep from having a penalty, might put a little bit in. But anyway, I just, if people don't know about it, or it's not brought up, a lot of times it out of sight, out of mind.
Well, at some point within the last 4 years, I don't remember when, but it was determined that money was there for something and got moved over to a fund. Like one day, at the time we were talking about a new interest park, and so the money, it was agreed by the board that it would be moved over. So really, if that's still a vision, then help move that forward.
It's not a lot of money. It's like $847 and some change. It's there.
So Friends has done a lot.
Okay.
Yeah, only $5.6 million left to go to have the new road and the entrance.
But I win the lotto.
Yeah, that might be the best bet, take the $850 and buy a lottery ticket.
Next item is adjournment.
Move to adjourn. Tom's got a place to be.
Second?
You got something?
I just wanted
Oh,
to
I'm sorry.
thank Miss Donna again. for this city manager's report idea. Tom and the mayor-elect actually met the mayor of Goodlettsville yesterday. And how enthused they are to have it in their city. And, you know, so here again, I just want to thank you.
You're welcome.
Because I think as far as transparency goes, this may be the best thing that Fairview's ever put out. So I just want to thank you again.
I haven't heard anything but good comments about it.
Thank you, ma'am. And the directors and every department heads do a great job on, you know, submitting it. So.
Do we have to have a motion
Second.
again? All in favor?
Aye.